How's it going?
Things are pretty crazy in my world. I'm sure it's the same for you.
Definitely. And we were talking a little bit before we started the recording, and the world is turning upside down, especially in the world of the LSAT, which you are much more qualified to speak to than I am. So I just want to turn it over to you for a few minutes. Can you explain what the heck is going on that front?
Yeah, sure, Nicole. Well, it's been pretty crazy on mine just because people were going to take the March LSAT, that got canceled. People were going to take April, that got canceled too. And that's a big problem because obviously you want to go to law school, you want to take the LSAT to get in. Law schools also need applicants. And so the LSAC, Law School Admission Council, they had to figure something out. And so what they did is they put the LSAT online. That's the biggest change. Not only are they putting it online, but they also reduced it from 5 sections to 3. Now, as someone who took the LSAT as a 5-section exam, how does that make you feel?
Honestly, I am frustrated by the fact that people get to do like half the work on the actual day of the test. But to be fair, I think moving to a totally new format is stressful in and of itself. So it's definitely a balancing, I think, of pros and cons. I'm just glad I'm done with the LSAT, to be honest.
That's how most people feel when I talk to them about it, if they're past that stage of their life. Unlike me, I kind of got stuck here, and I've been here for the past 15 years, and I've been tracking all the changes along the way. And this is probably the biggest change to the LSAT since 1991 when they put it in the current format. But now the supposedly temporary LSAT Flex is LSAC's adjustment to make it online. They're saying they're only going to have it online as far as the coronavirus situation requires. But my personal take is, once you go forward on technology, why would you go back? It's so much easier logistically. People were taking flights, people were booking hotel rooms, they were driving for hours to take it at a convenient test center or inconvenient one. Now they could do it from home, assuming you've got a good computer and a good internet connection, quiet environment, so your roommates and your dog aren't bothering you. You could make it work.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up because that was actually something that was surprising to me. I kind of heard that rumor of like, oh, this is temporary fix. And I just don't see that being actually where it goes. And I could totally be wrong, obviously, because I think administrations like LSAT make silly decisions all the time. But it does make sense to, once you do all this work, to put it into a format that is more convenient for a lot of people, to maybe like have both options when this is over. I probably, because I lived in a very populated area in California, probably still would go to a test center. I just like structure, but I can imagine that keeping this going far beyond coronavirus is probably going to be something that happens in industries way beyond LSAT too. I mean, people are learning a totally different way to run our society and live and study and go to school. So I can't imagine everything is just going to go back to normal, whatever normal is.
Yeah, I think this relates to the whole question of to what extent will this entire pandemic create a new normal? How many of the shifts will be temporary and revert back to the old normal versus how many will be permanent? But the nice thing is that taking it online addresses so many other issues also. Like in the past, if there were an inclement weather situation like a blizzard, a tornado, a hurricane, people couldn't do it in person. They had to cancel it for those specific geographic areas. And now what if they could just say, you're doing it online, or you're doing it online anyway, regardless. Also, people overseas, like I said, they're traveling to the capital city in the country they're in. If they're in the Peace Corps in some remote area, they had to travel, plus international tests were fewer per year. And so like March LSAT being canceled, the next option for people in China is June. They have to wait 3 months, whereas those in the US could just theoretically have taken it the following month. And so I think this becomes a lot more fair overall, just to give everyone more general access. And to address the question of people who can't do it at home because bad internet, not a suitable computer for them, LSAC will hook them up with a loaner or a place to take it. So they are going to try and help those people out. They'll do right by them. But I think overall for most people, this is going to be a much more comfortable environment. The comfort of your own home, only doing 3 sections. It's a more pleasant test day experience, I think.
Yeah, honestly, I'd never even thought about international and what that even looked like. That's crazy. I can't imagine having built up your timeline to study for the last 3 to 6 months, only to be told, oh, you can't take it for another 3 months. Like that probably really negatively will impact some people's scores, because you're definitely going to face burnout after 9 months of studying. And even if you you're not going to retain everything that you learned, 3 months back from now, which will be 6 months from then. That's crazy that they have to.
Yeah. And just negatively impact your life. I mean, you thought you'd be done with this. Now you've got to study for another 3 months. That's probably dozens of hours of studying at least.
Yeah.
And especially considering the LSAT's the number one factor in admissions, it's really important for you to have to keep thinking about this and working on it when you could have moved on with your life. I love the fact that LSAC started doing more frequent test administrations. And I think given the move to online, they could theoretically offer it every month. They were already moving to 9-10 times a year. They could do every month, and to better compete with the GRE, they certainly have reason to do that.
Right. You mentioned it's the number one factor for law school admissions. Do you think that that's going to change in the next year or two based on all of everything that's going on with LSAT and Corona? Do you think that people should be worried or encouraged by any of that? Do you think admissions are going to look at that differently?
It will remain the number one factor. I don't see how this would change any of that. The relative importance of the GPA, though, the GPA may even become less important this cycle because spring semester, I'm sure you've heard a lot about pass-fail in the law school side. The same thing's been happening in the undergrad side. And so spring semester is like a kind of a big question mark or a big asterisk. And I think admissions is going to understand this was a unique situation in people's lives. Obviously, many professors are not well equipped to suddenly move to an online format. Students are also not as engaged, especially if they're following the news or worried about their families and worried about finances. That obviously is a bit of a rough situation for people to be in. And so, if anything, this will just make the LSAT even more important relative to the GPA. But of course, if it impacted your GPA, it's certainly worth writing an addendum to explain if you feel the need.
Definitely. That kind of goes against what I would assume. So it's interesting that you say that, because I would think that the GPA being a longer term of evaluation of somebody's intelligence or commitment to school is probably a better way to say that. I would think that that would become more important as opposed to a one-time test that you've been totally thrown off for.
That's reasonable if you think about it on the individual level. The problem is that when you have to compare different people from different colleges with different majors. How do you know which college had more grade inflation than another, or which major had more grade inflation, or which specific professors? There's too many moving factors there. At least the LSAT is a common number that is roughly equivalent across everybody. Obviously, there's variations, but LSAC, they're big on statistics, they're big on data, and they are obsessive about making sure that every LSAT is equivalent in difficulty overall. So whether you're taking it in March or April or May or June, the number is still comparable. And additionally, even with the new online LSAT Flex being 3 sections, not 5, LSAC is still committed to making sure that those results are comparable to the old in-person 5-section exams too. And I don't think they'd be doing this if they didn't think it was still valid and reliable. And every law school I've heard from has also indicated their faith that LSAC has the ability to create the LSAT Flex as yet another valid and reliable exam that the scores would be roughly equivalent and still valid to be using for admission purposes.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. That's definitely news to me, and I'm glad that my audience is going to be able to consider that when they're talking about their own studying and taking the test. I know we mentioned we didn't want to keep this video too long, but I definitely want to make sure that we talk about what changes are going to be made to the LSAT. We've already talked about the sections being pared down, the fact that you're taking it from home. What do people need to know when it comes to their studying, their setting up of their testing environment? How is this going to be different than the LSAT that they've been preparing for all along?
Well, one big thing we should talk about is the 3 sections versus 5. So endurance is a little bit less important. It's more important that you're warmed up and ready to go the second it starts, because each question is relatively more important since you're doing about 75 scored questions, not 100 scored questions. So definitely adjust your practice test routine. I should also mention that it's 1 section of games, 1 logical reasoning, 1 reading comprehension. You're not doing 2 logical reasonings, and there's no experimental section. So logical reasoning, LSAC has confirmed, will only be about 1/3 of your score in weighting. So logical reasoning is slightly less important than it was for the in-person LSAT, and games and reading comp are slightly more important. So you may want to adjust the ratio of your studying of each section appropriately. The other thing is doing it at home, taking it at home. Have a good internet connection, wired Ethernet if possible, not just Wi-Fi, and a hotspot from your phone won't work either. Make sure that you're studying and taking practice tests in the same exact place you'll be doing it on test day. So preferably a clean desk in a quiet room. You're the only person in there, and you've got buy-in from your roommates, family, significant other, any pets to stay out of the way for those 2 hours so you can just buckle down and get it done without interruptions.
Definitely. Okay, so I don't know if you know the answer to this, but since I've got you, I might as well ask. What happens if there are technical difficulties in the midst of your test? Does LSAC have a backup plan for that?
Yeah, sure. So they're administering the LSAT Flex through a company called ProctorU that also proctors several other online exams like the GRE and the GMAT, the advanced placement exams for high school students and others as well. And the idea is that they are saving your work constantly. And so if there's a temporary technical issue, like your internet glitches for a second, they can save your work and you could pick up where you left off. And I'm still awaiting confirmation on how long that glitch could be. Like if it were for an hour and there was a power outage, presumably that would be a different situation. But if it's just a short flicker of sorts, they'll be able to let you pick up where you took off.
Okay, cool. I hope that you'll keep us updated with that. When we know any further information, I'll be sure to pin it in the comments and description below, and remain in contact with Steve if anything else major changes. I think that's all the time that we've got for now. Is there any last minute tips that we didn't touch on that's really important for people to know?
No, I think that's pretty much it, Nicole, but folks can always feel free to reach out to me directly with any questions through the LSAT Unplugged YouTube channel, the podcast, the Facebook group, the Instagram, and of course the LSAT blog. I'm posting updates multiple times a day as I learn more information and develop more resources to help everybody studying for this.
Right. And everyone watching, don't worry, all of Steve's information will be in the description below. I highly recommend everything he just mentioned. I used it when I went through my LSAT studying. So you can find all of that information in the description and or comments. Thank you, Steve, so much, as always, for your willingness to help us out with all of these crazy changes and tips that you've given for the LSAT. We've done several videos together now, and it's always such a pleasure and honor to speak with you.
Same. Thank you, Nicole. Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I wish you all the best and take care.